United, is United Progressive Alliance, UPA, United Progressive Alliance.
We are missing you on this side.
That's not. No.
What is it?
Yes, come.
Yes, it should be.
They must.
No, both of us.
Okay.
No, it's not in our last Oh, yeah.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the press, welcome to Azimio Center. This afternoon we have a statement on the situation in Mount Kenya region, which is going to be read by Her Excellency, Madam Martha Karua. We have got several political parties present here today, including NARC Kenya. We have also the Jubilee Party. We have got OPA Party. We have also got Usawa Party represented here. And of course we have got DAP and Roots and Reform Party of Kenya, and ODM, of course. But all this is part of the Azimio coalition. So the statement is going to be read, as I've said, by Madam Martha Karua. Karibu, Madam.
Thank you. Here is the statement. Azimio la Umoja, One Kenya Coalition Party, has held a meeting to reflect on what is clearly becoming the policy of the Kenya Kwanza regime to profile Mount Kenya region for political and economic domination. The meeting took note of the desire of the people of Mount Kenya to have a healthy political environment like other Kenyans. Unfortunately, this desire is being thwarted by the KK regime, and it must stop. Whereas the Constitution under Article 37 gives the people of Kenya the right to peacefully assemble, demonstrate, picket, and present petitions to public authorities, the actions of this illegitimate regime indicate a determination to deny the same to the people of Mount Kenya. We saw this during the questioning of Minor Jenga at the DCI on the 25th of May this year, and the subsequent court appearance in Nakuru. Minor's treatment laid bare the determination of the regime to weaponize state agencies to harass and intimidate Mount Kenya leaders. We are seeing the profiling of Mount Kenya youth as Mungiki, which amounts to an attempt by the regime to create an artificial crisis to justify violence against innocent youth from the mountain. It is our position that profiling of Mount Kenya youth will not solve the problems facing this regime. It will only derail the healing process. It will equally not help the Mount Kenya youth overcome the many challenges driving them into despair. We must remind the people of Kenya the violence that was meted out on Kenyans, and particularly the Kikuyu nation, in 1992, 1997, and 2007-2008, which was started and sustained by senior government officials, some of whom are serving in this illegitimate regime. Those who faced ICC charges over the 2007-2008 violence must be reminded that killing witnesses will not make them become exonerated of those crimes. Further, we wish to remind the people of Mount Kenya that the attempt to target, isolate, and finish established leaders and political parties of the region has happened before with grim consequences. Those who are old enough when power changed hands in 1978 will recall that Kikuyu leaders and their businesses and those in the public sector became immediate targets. The community witnessed a massive effort to cut down and humiliate its leaders, like the late James Gishuru, Njoroge Mungai, Bio Koinange, Waroro Kanja, Bernard Hinga, who was a commissioner of police, and Mwai Kibaki. Immediately, Jomo Kenyatta left the stage. Mwai Kibaki was to later become the most transformational leader the nation has ever known. He was seriously undermined and humiliated. The government claimed to be conducting surveillance of subversive activities and that its agents had infiltrated the organizations responsible for the same. This claim, like today's claim about the resurgence of Mungiki, is but an excuse to start harassing and suppressing any political activity or reorganization in the mountain region. Then as now, the state-sponsored political attack dogs to ensure that Kikuyu leaders who could command national constituency, like Kebake did at the time, did not rise. That plan has started again with this illegitimate regime. As the regime targets the region's youth and leaders, it has also trained its eyes in taking over or destroying political parties associated with the region. The invasion of the Jubilee Party must be seen in this light. It is an attempt to cripple Mount Kenya leadership and create a crisis of governance of political parties in the region. The verification of our Azimio chairman, His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta, is also part of this evil scheme to subdue a whole community and region. This is totally unnecessary. Chinua Achebe once said, remarked, when did the rain start beating us? And we are asking, when did the rain start beating the mountain region? It is apparent that the destabilization of Jubilee Party and the destruction of established political leaders of the region is a do-or-die agenda for the KK regime, sponsored by the highest level of the Kenya Kwanza leadership to ensure that Mount Kenya region has no serious political party to challenge anti-Mount Kenya policies that appear to be driving the decisions of this regime. Many of the tax measures contained in the finance bill currently before Parliament are unreasonable and clearly directed not only at the nation, but particularly at Mount Kenya businesses. The proposed turnover tax is basically a tax on assets whose primary objective is to impoverish the mamambogas, boda-bodas, and other vulnerable Kenyans struggling to make a living in these difficult economic circumstances. The majority of these businesses, small businesses, are owned largely by men and women of the mountain region. I will invite my colleague, Honorable Kioni, to read the conclusion.
In light of the above, we state as follows. Kenya Kwanza regime must stop profiling Mount Kenya youth as Mogeki or Walefi. We call on critical institutions, among them the Independent Policing Oversight Authority, IPOA, Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, and the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, to investigate the conduct of police at DCI offices and raids on MATIANG'I's homes, and the statements by government officials on the so-called resurgence of Mogeki sect. Any attempts to profile and vilify the community or to claw back gains made will be resisted very strongly. We will resist KK regime economic policies that are designed to oppress, deprive, or curtail economic opportunities of any of the communities that make up the state known as Kenya. Many of you might recall that back in the 80s and before, we had the cooperative movement. It was the first line of attack by the Moi regime. Many from Mount Kenya went under. We now can see another onslaught on the chamas, the merry-go-rounds, another onslaught on those groupings that are quite predominant within Mount Kenya. We will continue monitoring, documenting, and responding to emerging policy and human rights abuses affecting Mount Kenya region and any acts that are outside the rule of law. Kenya Kwanza regime, in its evil design to impoverish the poor people of Mount Kenya, must be reminded that it is not possible to legislate the poor into prosperity by legislating the wealthy out of prosperity. We demand the immediate withdrawal of the Finance Bill 2023 in its entirety. The unwarranted and uncalled for attacks on His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta, the Azimio chairman, must stop. We have said there before, and we want to repeat again, to some of those elected or holding elective positions within Mount Kenya, that in the past we have witnessed the reign of buffoons within Mount Kenya, and especially immediately after the death of President Jomo Kenyatta. We shall not allow this same behavior again within Mount Kenya. Mount Kenya is not available for auction. You need to look around for something else to sell. And all forms of political mobilization will be done to counter the reemergence of these buffoons, and our right of association must be respected across. Remember, Pastor Mackenzie is not being investigated for belonging to the Christian faith, but for what he did, the criminal acts. Our rights of association, our right of association must be respected. I thank you. May I invite Governor Iria to have a few comments.
Thank you very much. We are here because we are concerned and worried about our community. So, and you can see we are with other communities, but there is a concern on what's happening within the community of Kikuyus. And some of us have stood our ground, and you've said that we have to speak out because we can clearly look into the past, we can analyze the recent past, and we can project the planned future. As a community, this is a community which 8 months ago was being celebrated as a central cog for Kenya Kwanza. Our youths were being glorified as the mighty hustlers, and our youths were moving aloud in waves, and the wave resorted to the government that is said to be in place. Our worry is how such celebrated youths can within 6 months turn into thugs. How can hustlers transform from being hustlers within a space of about 6 months into being gangsters, into being mandalas, into being mungekis, into being drunkards, into being any other objective which can define them in the negative? That is a question which some of us are asking ourselves, and our leaders, our Kikuyu leaders, are just clapping as we are being demonized. If we don't speak for our youth, then we are condemning our future. Our youth are being targeted because of the future of Kikuyus as a community. The question which comes through is, where has this subject of Mungiki come from? Because no incident has been observed, and you media people have been with us in this nation. What has happened in the last 6 months to justify the statement and the proposition that there is the emergence of Mungiki? We want to be told of one singular event in one small village within central Kenya, the broader Mount Kenya, which has prompted this debate. Because we belong here, you belong here, we have not had anything, but all it has, suddenly the government, specifically Viruga Chagwa, has announced that there is reemergence of Mungiki. Where has that come from? If it's not a plot blood to profile our youth. Gachagua need to realize one thing. This nation owes a debt to Kikuyus for the blood which was shed in the Rift Valley. We lost people, human beings, Kikuyus known by name, working people were buried. They also owe us a debt in the name of our youth who are massacred in between 2004 and 2009. They were killed, and we have information they were even being buried by policemen under the name, under the blooding of Mungiki. Which is that offense which made our people be killed? Is it an offense which was supposed to be judged outside the court system? We have a list of people, young men who went missing, and some people seems to be celebrating that today. Between 2004 and 2009, our youth were killed under the guise of Mungiki, and Gachagua said it very clearly that it will happen the way it happened then. That is a threat to our youth. It means that our youth are supposed to be killed. And before they kill, before any drop of blood is spilled in Mount Kenya again, we must be compensated for the blood which we have already lost. It is dear enough, and enough is enough, and no one is going to spill any blood from any of our youngsters, whatever their mistakes, when we are alive. And I want to repeat once more, we are going to take census of the young men that we have lost. Nearly every family in Mount Kenya has a record of a lost son, of a lost daughter, and some funny blooding. We first of all need to be compensated for that before they kill others. I don't know the cost of a son because there is no cost. Losing a son, a Kikuyu son, is priceless. And someone can stand and tell the nation that our youth need to be warned that they face what they faced. We are telling him, come on. We are now mature enough. Some of us, we are grown-ups. When they did that, some of us were fairly young. We are now the fathers, the mothers of this community. And if we don't speak out, I don't know who else is meant to speak for us. We cannot expose our sons and daughters. Those who are being called, they are being called hawkers. Those who are being called hustlers. Those who are being called vijana wa mikokoteni. They are now drunkards, and they are now Mungiki. We want to tell them, it doesn't matter. None of our sons, our daughters is going to serve a death sentence under whoever's rule. And we want to tell Gachagua very clearly, Kenny, I have to finish. I'm speaking now from the community. And what I'm saying, I will not say tomorrow. Now, sasa umekatisha the flow. But I want to repeat once more that we are serious. You might think I'm taking time, but I'm talking about our children. If I'm talking about somebody's children, then I am supposed to be stopped. I'm talking about our sons and daughters. And we want to say that whoever is bringing that debate need to kill that debate with immediate effect. That is not a debate which was in this region. Wherever it has come from, Gachagua need to take that debate wherever he took it from, because we don't want to entertain such a debate in this region, and we want to assure our sons and daughters that we have leaders in Mount Kenya who are not going to be compromised, and we shall ensure their security and safety. If one makes a mistake, we have rule of law. If you are a thief goes through a particular legal process, judicial process. Kama umetukanana, but you cannot condemn our youth, put them in a basket, and you say that our youths are Mungiki. We are giving a warning against profiling Kikuyu as a community and Kikuyu youths in particular.
A compressed statement from Karo Irungu, Deputy Governor Nyeri one time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mine will be very brief. I think as leaders of Mount Kenya, we are here to call out this illegitimate government in what we are seeing initially to be dictatorial tendencies. We saw and we are seeing how they are continuing to speak. We want to call out this government on especially the finance bill. If you look at the finance bill, for a government that has been saying they have women at the core of their government, you look at clause 17, what our vice captain has said, women groups will now be considered as businesses, attracting a 30% tax. And the story of Mount Kenya, especially those of us who have grown up in Mount Kenya, is that as our fathers were working, our mothers are very involved in chamas and in merry-go-rounds. And they really support the family unit. In fact, if you look at the data in the Ministry of Gender, the Mount Kenya region ranks highest in uptake of the Women Enterprise Fund and the lowest in loan delinquency. And therefore, when you begin to look at these women in the villages as whatever activity they're taking on as business activities, essentially what you're doing is killing that sector. As Mount Kenya leaders, we're also very aware that this regime would like to kill our small businesses. If you go through the finance bill, once again, if you sell chai and mandazi, those small vibandas that we have in the village, and you only sell 1,300 shillings a day, those are 10, 12 cups of tea and mandazi in the village, you will now be paying to this government about 15,000 shillings a year. So ideally, we see a regime that is out to kill our Mount Kenya businesses, that is going for women, I mean in very mundane and desperate things like trying to charge wigs and weaves and very small desperate measures. Most of those businesses that sell those wigs and do those beauty activity are owned and run by women. So as women of Mount Kenya, we are seeing a regime that is out to hurt our businesses, that is out to hurt our activities as women, and therefore we want to call them out at these very early opportunities to tell them we will not stop to say that, and we will not be intimidated to say that for an illegitimate regime, I think you have a lot of guts to do what you're doing. I thank you very much.
Governor Derito.
Thank you very much. Let me say to you a bit in Kikuyu. You know, hiti ndereaga mwana, okay? No egenda kuria mwana yajagia kuga mwana ucio hiana mburi. Okay? So in our region there, the hyena does not eat its own child. But when the hyena is tempted to eat its own child, it begins to say that this child is smelling like a goat. There can be no doubt in your minds the reason our young people are being branded Mungeke, the reason they are being branded as drunkards is because there is some ill intent on them. And that intention, my colleague Karogo has explained to you, including the little that they earn. So a young person who is doing digital creation, that maybe they are making a website for you, or they are making up some promotion on TikTok or Instagram or something like this, will now be paying withholding tax, not at the normal rate of 5%, which others pay as professionals, but these young people will now, if this bill were to be passed, will be paying 15%, 3 times what other professionals do. It must be clear, certainly to all of us, that young people in Mount Kenya are being targeted very, very specifically, both economically and profiled, so that perhaps extrajudicial killings can now resurface. And
we want to say to the entire world, and we hope you as communicators help us to tell the whole world, watch out. Honorable Mwathi, karibu.
Thank you very much. Let me also join my colleagues and the leaders to also emphasize on the point that I have made about the youth in Mount Kenya. And I want to particularly speak to those youth. That yes, you youth, you are very good. Yes, you said you wake up to go and support a government that you thought was taking you to prosperity. But today, 8 months later, you are now being branded all manner of words. That you are not useful to that government cannot be gainsaid, because it means the government was only using you to get to power. And once they get that power, you then become useless. But I also quickly ask, what is this that they know that they don't need the youth in future? There must be a grand plan. And that grand plan is plan for their basket of votes as they finish our youth. It is time for us, you youth who belong to this community, to stand up to be counted. Say no to this repressive regime. Secondly, let me speak to the members of parliament, because I was there and I'm a former member of parliament for Limuru. And I'm known for having taken a motion in parliament when it was first put under camera, talking about how our youth were being killed. And I know I received threats then from some people